If I told you 10 or even 5 years ago that MG would be stepping into the shoes of Ford at building a small, affordable, compact car, you probably wouldn't believe me. But here we are in 2024 and they've done exactly that. MG are scooping up the customers who can no longer buy a Ford Fiesta. But actually what they're doing is they're offering an even more enticing package of a strong hybrid. Hi guys, my name's Tish and welcome back to my channel Auto Social UK. In today's video, I've got my hands on the brand new MG3. I'll be telling you everything you need to know about this car and whether it's really good enough to replace the Fiesta. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you like new car reviews and car content, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So I say it's replacing the Ford Fiesta, but really it's not doing that because it's slightly different. It more sits alongside the Renault Clio and also the Suzuki Swift as a hybrid city car option. Being an MG, it promises to be cheap and cheerful, but does it lose some of the essence when it is cheap and cheerful? Well, hopefully that's what we're going to find out. In terms of styling, I think it's a pretty good looking car. They've done a good job at taking the styling of the MG4 and making it just a little bit more accessible and a little bit more friendly. It definitely has a real kind of edge about it. But I'm not sure whether it's going to weather the test of time. It looks good now, but I'm not sure whether this is a kind of design which will date. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. At the bottom, you've actually got a little bit of carbon effect to give it that sporty feel. You've got quite a few dynamic edges and lines. You've got this gloss black grille here and the sharp headlamps. It certainly isn't a bad looking car. The rear, however, seems to have taken a far more simple approach. They've even opted for standard red rear lights, rather than following the trend of the Clio and the Swift and opting for clear ones. It sits on 16-inch two-tone alloy wheels, wrapped in Kumho Solace tyres, which have received mixed reviews online. Overall, I think they've done a decent job of smartening up the smallest MG to give it a sporty presence. But is it all dressed up, or has it actually got some power underneath that bonnet? Pretty much straight after having the MG3 delivered, I took it out for a spin, and this was prior to knowing anything about the engine in the car. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't going in completely blind. I knew it was a hybrid. That's pretty much where my knowledge stopped. I wasn't fully sure if it was a strong hybrid, a mild hybrid, or what petrol engine it was paired together with. So, as I took it out for a spin, I guess I was expecting a sluggish car with around 100 brake horsepower, because other MGs are not known for being particularly fast, excluding some of the electric stuff. So when I got in this car and I gave it a go in sports mode, and suddenly I had a real burst of quick power. I realised that I'd underestimated the MG3. It was quite a lot quicker than I had been expecting. This engine is currently the only one on sale. It's called the Hybrid Plus, and it's a 1.5 litre petrol with a 100 kilowatt electric motor and a small hybrid battery. Official output is 191 brake horsepower, and it sprints from 0 to 62 in just 8 seconds. That's warm hatch territory. In fact, it's faster than all of its non-hybrid rivals, including the Hyundai i20 and the Volkswagen Polo, and around a second quicker than the full hybrid Renault Clio. And personally, I think that power alone will be enough to entice a lot of people away from some of its rivals. For instance, this MG3 gets double the power, if not a little bit more, than a Suzuki Swift. Sure, the Suzuki Swift is just a mild hybrid, but it gets under 90 brake horsepower. This is double the power, and it feels like that on the road as well. The MG3 Hybrid Plus can be had in two specs, the SE and the Trophy. The SE starts from £18,500 and it gets lots of specification, including the MG Pilot Cruise Control and SatNav. If you step up to the Trophy trim, it's going to cost you around £2,000 more, but that brings some really impressive kit, including the 360-degree camera, which in my opinion is a real highlight. Heated seats, heated steering wheel and part leather effect seats are also available, as well as keyless entry and LED projector headlights. For context, you get all of that for £2,000 less than a basic specification Toyota Yaris. The MG3 is not the first car to do cheap and cheerful. For instance, the Suzuki Swift is also cheap and cheerful. And when you first look at this car, it feels a lot better quality than the Swift. For instance, you've got part leather seats, you've also got leather on this armrest. You don't get an armrest in the Swift. Leather across the dashboard. Of course, I'm saying leather, I mean leather effect. And you also get a little bit of tartan on the dashboard as well. So when you first look at it, it looks a lot better trimmed than that car. But in my personal opinion, as you start to poke around and play around with some of the things within the cabin, that's when it starts to not really live up to some of the competitors within this market. You see, there's just little flimsy elements within this car, like this. This just feels so flimsy to me. It's actually quite hard to get it in the right position because every time you give it the smallest touch, it just moves out of direction. And that's just a cost-cutting thing. It's got a slightly cheap way of it being connected. And you've also got this central bit of storage. Sure, it's nice to have somewhere to pop your mobile phone, and it's nice for there to be hidden cup holders, but this just feels a little bit cheap. Let me see if I can get this out. Can I? I'm sure I can remove it. I've seen somebody else remove it. There you go. You just have this little bit of plastic. It's handy. But this to me just screams Temu, AliExpress. It feels like these added accessories that you get off of these websites which cost next to nothing. And sure, it does a job. But how long is it actually going to last? And I feel like that a lot with this car. There's a lot of elements with it that I'm just not sure how well they're going to weather. All versions of the MG3 are equipped with a 10.25-inch touchscreen, which are far better than the car that they replace. It's even a little bit better than the one in the MG4 EV. The display is clear and highly responsive, only experiencing a slight delay when accessing certain features. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are available, but only wired, of which there are two options, USB and USB-C, but no wireless charging. A big issue I found is that when CarPlay is being used, the climate shortcut doesn't work. You have to go home first. I've seen a couple of people complain about this, and it's a wonder whether they'll change it in an upcoming update. Placing themselves within the small car market, they were never going to win awards for boot space. Inside the boot, you'll find an adequate amount of storage space, but it's not the most user-friendly. You've got quite a high load area, which means loading heavy items in could be a little bit tricky if you don't have the best mobility. Although things like this boot are quite light, and you've also got a pretty robust parcel shelf. But you won't find any luxuries like any 12-volt charging or any extra amenities or kind of storage areas, which is a shame. But how does it compare to some of its competitors? With 293 litres on offer, the MG3 has a touch more room than the Toyota Yaris with its 286 litre boot, and just a snip less than the 300 litres of the Renault Clio Hybrid. And like with that boot space, they're not looking at winning awards for the rear interior space either. But actually, this is somewhere where I've been pleasantly surprised. It feels very comfortable back here. Doesn't feel like a compact car. I'm about 5'5" and I've still got quite a lot of headroom and a nice amount of legroom as well. And it feels a little bit reclined. It's quite comfortable back here. You've also got these kind of false leather trimmed seats, which feel really nice. And I love the fact that you've got pockets behind the seats and you've got USB charging in the back as well. A little bit of storage, not sure what you'd pop there, maybe your mobile phone. And there's even space in the doors. These are things that we're not seeing in other cars, like even the Jeep Avenger, which is set up to be an SUV. It's supposed to be a bigger car. But actually in the back here, this feels more practical. I actually remember that when I first test drove the MG4 electric, I was really surprised with just how engaging it was to drive. You had a low slung seating position and the steering was actually quite heavy. And they seem to have implemented the same kind of driving style into the MG3. You've got that same low slung driving position, and actually, especially for a city hybrid car, the steering is quite heavy. Now, don't get me wrong, there's also
quite a lot of looseness to the steering. It's not the most precise, but that heaviness to the steering just gives you a little bit more confidence when driving this car fast. And paired together with that extra power, it means that you actually quite want to drive this car fast. I do think that if you try to do any technical driving, it might start to lose a bit of its cool. But I like that you can actually enjoy driving this car. It's not completely lost any of its personality. And for me, that's something which has most pleasantly surprised me.
Something else which has impressed me is the implementation of the safety features. Like many modern cars, the MG3 gets a suite of safety features, including traffic sign recognition and speed alert. However, this alert is quiet enough to remain switched on without irritating the driver. I also really like that the safety settings are all clearly displayed on the screen, and some systems like lane assist, you can even adapt the sensitivity. I really wanted to love the MG3, and whilst I don't hate the MG3, it's not my favourite of the small hybrids on sale today. I do think that a Renault Clio or even a Suzuki Swift is a better option. There's just some things that just haven't gelled with me with this car, and maybe that's just me, and that's fine. If you guys have bought an MG3 and you're enjoying it, then let me know in the comments down below, or perhaps you have the same feelings as me. You're just not fully convinced on this car. But the thing is that affordable hybrid cars like this are so important, and I'm pleased that they're out there. But I guess what they've done with the MG3 is it feels like they've focused on being better than everybody else at everything, rather than perfecting things. It doesn't feel perfected, but then again, they're probably not going for perfect. But let me know, what do you think of the MG3? Pop it in the comments down below. I guess my advice would be, if you are looking to purchase an MG3, get one on a PCP or PHC finance deal. That way, if it doesn't stand the test of time, then you can hand it back at the end of that plan. I really hope you have enjoyed this video today, guys. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. If you want to see more, then you know what to do. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, see you later.